Welcome, welcome. If everyone wants to go ahead and take a seat. Moment. Can you hear me? Okay, if everyone wants to go ahead and take a seat, we'll get started in just a moment. Thanks for being here, everyone. And thanks for your patience. Welcome and happy Thursday, everyone. It is First Thursday once again, so we are here at RevRoad University here at RevRoad. I'm so excited to see you all today. I see some new faces as well as some familiar faces, so that is exciting. Hopefully you know that you are in for a treat today. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Thanks to those who are here in person as well as those who are online. My name is Sydney Dunn. I'm in sales and business development here at RevRoad. Here at RevRoad, we support entrepreneurs. We love being able to help companies grow, and we bring in companies from all over the world to help them rev up their revenue as well as prepare for fundraising and a whole slew of other services. If you don't know what we do, please catch one of our team members at the end today if you haven't caught on by then, and we'd love to share more with you. If you know other people who are interested in RevRoad or who would like to apply to be part of our portfolio, please direct them our way to our website and find one of our team members to chat more at the end of this. So, a couple quick announcements. We have a challenge for you today. We would love to invite you to share your favorite line or principle that you hear today on LinkedIn. Make sure you use the hashtag RevU, REVU. If you do this, you'll be entered in to win a Amazon gift card for $20. So please make sure you are tuning in, paying attention, and sharing those great insights. If you need a restroom throughout the event today, these are just off the lobby, right outside the door to the right. And we will have questions at the end, a Q&A. If you have questions and you're in person, just raise your hand. We'll come around. We'll have mic runners, and you won't even need to hold the microphone. We'll do that for you. If you can just talk into the mic, one of our assistants will help you with that today. And then if you're online, please feel free to place your questions in the chat, and we will be monitoring that toward the end. And just to go over our schedule really quickly. I know we had that up a second ago on the board. But first, we're going to have a presentation by Bruce Hassler and a few special guests who are going to be talking about creating a prototype to validate your solution for free. We're also going to have our builder series with Ray, Mckenzie, and Colby Bauer, founders of Thread Wallets, and we'll be having a teaser video at the end for the RevU event in June. So it's now time for our workshop. Bruce Hassler, our co-founder and CTO at RevRoad, will be doing a quick workshop and will help us understand creating that prototype and validating your solution. So I'll turn the time over to him. Thanks, Bruce.
All right, thank you. Cool. Good morning. So we're going to do more than just talk about prototypes and validating solutions for free. We've got some special things at the end to talk about what else we can do with prototypes. So all right, so the special guests that we're going to pull up, we're going to bring up Joseph and Augustine and Moroni here in a little bit. But just to get started, first of all, what is a prototype, right? We're going to talk about some of these things in a little bit more detail today and why create one. First, and kind of the hook to get you here was like to test the viability of your solution. There are very simple ways to do that. We're going to talk about some of the tools and how you can do that for free, so that will be fun. One of the great things about prototypes is you can actually use it to define what your product is and your features. That process of going through in that detail of coming up with the screens really helps you figure out what you want your product to do. Also, it's super helpful to be able to use this to raise money, especially if you don't actually have a product. That might sound a little bit scary, but we're going to talk about that today. That's actually something Joseph is going to mention as well. And lastly, I think it's awesome to be able to use something like this to sell your product, especially before you've built it. I've even been part of companies that have used prototypes, that aren't startups, to use it as you create new products or new modules and things like that. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit today as well. So first of all, I want everybody to put their investor hats on. So pretend you're an investor. You know, you're in a big boardroom, and you've got two companies that are coming to pitch to you. So company A comes to you. They've got this really slick pitch deck. You know, they've got great graphics in there. They've been practicing a lot. One of those slides, they have this bulleted list of what their product's going to be. And, you know, they do a great job describing that to you. At the end, they're like, thanks a lot. We really hope you invest in our company. We'd love a check for $100,000. And then they leave. Okay, so that's company A. Company B, they come in and they do a demo with a prototype and describe the problems that it's solving. They do a really great job with that. One of the things they tell you is that they've used that to get 5 letters of intent. And then you have a great meeting, and at the end, they ask for a check for $100,000. So, which company would you invest in, and why? B. Okay, so why? Because they're action-oriented. What do you mean by that?
Test already.
Okay.
They're seeking for validation.
Yep. So they went and did things. They actually took what was in their head and put it on paper, so to speak, right? So absolutely. And the only reason I bring that up is that process of going through that is like super helpful. It's super helpful for a business to go and do that. To take something that's an idea and actually make it, you know, somewhat physical. And it's also helpful to do that before you build it too. So all of us are kind of wondering, where do you start? And I want to start off with this kind of this caution. Prototyping can be anything from, like, I sketch it out on a napkin, right? That's like some of the most basic things. And you hear some of these, I don't know, maybe apocryphal things where somebody was in a coffee shop and they drew up like, oh, this is how Instagram's going to work, and then it becomes huge. So there's like that end, and then there's like design firms that spend months, and you know, you could spend $1 million creating a prototype and doing research and doing refinement and things like that. We're going to talk something a little bit more middle of the road, something a little bit more practical, a lot better than napkin paper prototyping, but not pay $1 million to generate something like this. So where do you start? First of all, super important to identify, so you've got a market, right? You've got a segment of the people that you want to solve something for, but what are the problems that you're trying to solve? So it's important to identify the problem or problems, because if it doesn't do any good to draw up a whole bunch of pretty screens if they don't solve problems. Next is to kind of brainstorm solutions to that. I'm kind of a whiteboard person. I love being in a room with a whiteboard. It helps me think better. And the first thing I'll do is I'll write, okay, what are the problems we're trying to solve? And then I'll just start brainstorming. And that could be a combo of just like writing out what I think the solution is. It might be drawing up some screens for what those are, but like just do whatever. You can do that by yourself. You can do that with your co-founder. You can do that with like whoever helps you be creative. And also remember that all the solutions that you come up with, you know, those might not work, right? But brainstorm. The next thing is to go ahead and translate those ideas into some quick screens or wireframes. A wireframe is basically just, you know, what it sounds like. You know, everybody knows what web pages or apps look like. A wireframe is like you drawing that thing out. There's actually lots of tools for doing wireframing. I've used some of them. I think it's easier just to go do the wireframing portion on a whiteboard. So just go through, just do it as fast as you can, get everything out. And don't overthink this step either. And then next, and I know that there's a lot of controversy over this. I really like having high fidelity mock-ups of this. And part of the reason is it does put you in the state of mind of thinking about it a little bit more. The other thing is, as you do high fidelity mock-ups of this, it actually helps you accomplish your goal if you're trying to raise money or trying to sell it. It's really hard to do those two things if you've got, you know, things that are on a napkin, right? As you do the high fidelity mock-up, one of the things I like to do is, you know, I'll look at other products that I like for inspiration. You know, it's kind of like if you're building a house, you know, and you go get on Pinterest or House app and you go find stuff that you like, and then you're like, hey, this is what I would like to do. It's kind of like that, except for with product. So go find things that you like to use, you know, whether it's a website or app, and you can use that for inspiration. The other thing, and be a little bit careful about this, look at what other competitors are doing. You know, you might hear some people that say, no, you don't ever want to look at competitors' products, and then there's also people that obsess over competitors' products. Again, you want to be somewhere in the middle. You want to know what they do, and there might be some things that you pull from those competitors, and that's okay. But look at their stuff, but don't do that as the first step, because a lot of times if you do it as the first step, that gets stuck in your head, and your solution ends up being their solution. So this is where to start. So what I want to do next is turn the time over to Augustine and Moroni. They've created a company called TYRO, and I ran into these guys, what was it, couple months ago? And they had this great idea, and they're like, hey, Bruce, we want to start prototyping this. And I just shared a little bit of advice, and they've done a great job kind of walking through these steps. And so I want them to share with you kind of what they've done. So give them a hand.
Hello, everyone. I'm Augustine. This is Moroni. So, yeah, thanks to Bruce, of course, but we created a business called TYRO. At first, we just had an idea. We were both BYU students. As you can see, we're both pretty young. But we had this idea that we wanted to change the way gift cards are used. We want to digitalize them and make them electronic. So we had this great idea, but we had no idea what to do next. We know we need to validate it and to do some problem interviews and see how we can make this a solution. So we came to RevRoad, and really they said, yes, you need to validate, and the biggest thing you need to do is a wireframe. We had no idea what a wireframe was. We knew about just talking to people, telling them our idea. They're saying, oh yeah, that's a cool idea, and that was it. That's all we knew how to do. We talked to Bruce about it. He showed us a few things we could do, and later we did a whiteboard diagram. As you can see, that's our brainstorm, really. And what's great about these whiteboards is that we're able to write down our whole idea. We're able to think about the solution and seeing how we can work through it. And whiteboards are also great because we're able to pivot where we need to. So a few of the things we saw in our idea, we really wanted to make these like gift cards electronic for everyone, and being able to write down on a whiteboard helped us change the way we thought about different things, and we were able to change the consumer interaction as well. So now consumers are able to use better things with our app, and with the whiteboard, we're able to see those things differently.
I think one of the scariest parts is that I'm not an artistic person. So I was thinking, how were we going to make this app or this wireframe to make it look how we want it to look like? But one of the first things that we learned was that it wasn't too difficult. I remember when we talked to Bruce about making a wireframe, he mentioned different companies we could use. Adobe XD was one of the ones that we decided to try out first. And we got on it, and it was looking like a bunch of code stuff, and I was like, okay, what are we going to do? So then we talked to Bruce again, and he told us about Figma, and Figma is what we ended up actually using. And one of the first things I noticed, it was basically kind of like using, I don't know, Sketch or editing a picture. It wasn't too difficult, wasn't too hard. There was add, drop features. And one of the nice things that they had there as well is that you can go and kind of about the competitors. You can go to look at what your competitors are doing. Maybe they have a button you like and kind of add it on yours. You can take inspiration from other people and then build your idea around that. The biggest thing about wireframing is basically taking that idea that you have in your head and then creating it. I think that was one of the best parts and most enjoyable parts for me, was taking what we thought about and putting it actually in a physical, tangible thing, and then being able to take that thing and show it to other people and be like, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing, this is what it looks like. What's your feedback? What's your thoughts? And how can we improve it? And ultimately, after we built that wireframe, we're able to come here to 1 Million Cups and then present. And it felt a little bit better being able to show everybody what we have been working on and them being able to see it and give us the needed feedback. So.
Yeah, now in the future, we can use the same wireframe to show investors, to show people even interested in our product, to even do even better validation and even better problem interviews. So now instead of just talking about our idea, we can show it to people and have them interact with it as well. That's us.
All right. So we'll have these guys come back up at the end for Q&A. So I know you wanted to ask them some questions, but we'll have them come up at the very end. Anyway, great job. It was super fun working with them. And if you've not seen it, which a lot of you probably haven't, Amy, is it Provo 1 Million Cups on YouTube? So go search for Provo 1 Million Cups. It's recorded. They did an awesome job. So, yep, we'll share it. So way better on the stage than I am. So thanks, guys. Okay, so idea to pitch. Okay, so prototypes really do help with pitching. One of the things that, and this is actually a screenshot of their app. Sorry, we should have pulled that up. So I think it turned out pretty well. It's kind of cool. So next thing I want to talk about is getting feedback. So I think the first thing in getting feedback is having a really good demo. Has anyone ever sat through a super boring demo? About half the people. Just shout it out. What makes demos boring? No interaction. They don't know what they're doing. That's fun. Autopilot, okay. So they're not paying attention to like who's in the room. Too technical. What was that back there? No cause. Okay, so those are all great things. And you know, sometimes the things I hate the worst is, like, I have a super short attention span, and so I've got somebody that's giving me a demo of this product, and they're going through like every single screen and every button on every single screen. I'm like, dude, I know what those buttons are going to do. And there's not a story that goes with it. And so one of the things I like to do when creating a demo is come up with, you've already identified some problems, right? Come up with some good scenarios that solve those problems. Come up with a story. People like stories. And the purpose of the demo is to show them how the product solves the problem, not to show them the product. Right? Does that make sense? So don't show them the product, show them how the product solves the problem. So create a great demo. That means having good demo data. You know, so a lot of times we'll see people doing demos and they'll write like test in there and stuff. Like, come up with a scenario and like have the data support that. So do a good demo. Next thing, and the demo actually helps you with this, as you're coming up with these scenarios in the demo, you'll naturally come up with messaging, right? As you're solving real problems, you'll come up with messaging on how to solve that. As you go and you pitch that to people, you can tell, you know, if they get excited about it or not, right? So if what you're saying falls flat, you're like, oh, I need to go fix this part of my demo, right? If they get really excited about something, you're like, oh, I'm going to keep that. That works really well. And there also might be instances where you demo something and they come up with something completely different, a different problem that it solves. And you might want to incorporate that in there. So that's kind of what that messaging looks like. The other thing is, you're going through this, it helps you to iterate. So I think these guys mentioned it. I think it was Moroni that mentioned it, that, like, you know, sometimes what you put on the whiteboard isn't the right thing, which means ultimately what you have in your prototype wasn't the right thing. You'll learn that after you go through some of these, right? So maybe you didn't build something quite right, or maybe you're missing some features, or maybe something's too complicated. This lets you iterate on those product designs. And the last thing I want to leave you with is, as you're doing these demos and these pitches and things like that, people will give you feedback, which is awesome. The one caution is, don't add everything they tell you. Like, people naturally will like tell you, oh, can it do this, or can you add this button to do this? You don't want to do everything that you hear. Otherwise, you'll end up with this weird Frankenstein ginormous product. But if you find clusters of things, right? If like 10 people tell you something similar, then you're like, oh, that, like, they might be onto something. And so you can think about, how do I incorporate that? So does that make sense? Cool. So let's switch from like kind of the feedback thing to sales. And this is what gets me really excited, because this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. I've got 3 different ways that prototypes can be used, and I'm using sales in kind of a different way. But a lot of times when you're a startup, you know, you start off pretty small, you don't have a whole lot of money. One of the things that you need to do is convince people to join your company, right? And sometimes you're trying to convince people to join your company and not paying them much money or maybe any money. And so like, prototypes can be really helpful in that. You know, you can use, like, the same way that you can use a prototype to get somebody excited about buying it, you can do the same thing to get a team member excited about your cause, right? because it can clearly articulate what you're trying to do. And so I would use that as part of recruiting. So next, we've talked about pitching to investors a little bit. You know, if you've got a great prototype and a great demo, you know, incorporate that into your pitch deck. You know, and you can kind of figure out where the best place to do that is. I know, like, we hear a gajillion pitches. There's a lot of the time, and granted, I'm a tech guy, right? But there's a lot of times I'm sitting in the back of the room. I'm like, just like, show me what you're talking about. Like, stop showing me slides. Show me what your product is. And a lot of times I'm really disappointed when that never happens, right? And so I really think it's important to try and incorporate that as you pitch. And also it's important, like we talked about, trying to incorporate that into sales. And some of these things you can kind of switch out where I'm saying prototype. Once you have a real product, do the same thing with the real product, right? But if you don't have the real product, use the prototype. Okay. What I want to do next is I want to introduce to you Joseph Martin. He's online, so we'll go ahead and bring him on. He's the CEO of one of our portfolio companies, Kinectify. And I think he's done an incredible job, as we've talked about the sales process, using a prototype both in the instance with investors and pitching, and also being able to use that as a sales tool. So everybody say hi to Joseph. Hey, Joseph. Oh, he can't see you, so he can just see you. Sorry. Anyway, so we'll go ahead and, so let's pull the slide back up. I'll have him kind of walk through some of the things that he's done.
Hey, everyone. Can everyone hear me? I think
yes, we can hear you.
All right, awesome. Glad the audio is working. Cool. Well, yeah, I'm with Kinectify, and you know, this our concept was solving compliance issues for gaming and blockchain and organizations like that. I had worked in the industry for a while, so I knew pretty much what I needed to build, what we needed to build, what we wanted to build. To give them a software solution that's a lot better than what they currently have. And so it went through multiple iterations. So it started off on like whiteboarding and on sheets of paper that I was sharing with software engineers that I knew and kind of refining our ideas. And then it went into PowerPoint, and I started doing more like high definition prototyping, and then bumping up with my friends that all worked in the industry and getting tons of feedback on them. You have to be careful when you do that. Like, we signed NDAs, and you have to make sure that you're doing things right. But we pulled in a lot of people, and they gave us tons of feedback. We got the pages looking pretty much exactly how we wanted to look. And then I learned how to use Adobe XD. And so similar to Figma, Adobe XD, it's a wireframing tool. And so it was clickable and usable. As soon as I had that done and I made that high definition and it looked like an application, I stopped calling it a wireframe and I started calling it a prototype, because I knew that was what I was going to build, right? And so I was pulling a team together, software engineers. I was talking to investors, talking about raising money. I wanted to legitimize the company, because I knew our first clients were going to be top tier organizations like Caesars Entertainment, MGM, and all that. And so if I just went to them and I was like, well, I was a former lower level analyst, I used to work for Caesars, and I have this great software, I was concerned that even though my resume might be impressive, it wouldn't be impressive enough to have the legitimacy to compete with a company like SAS or a company like SAP. So I wanted to pull in high-level executives in that industry to give my company a lot of weight and legitimacy. So I went to former bosses and bosses of bosses and networked and got in the room with these executives, and I showed them my prototype. And I spoke to it like it was a functioning prototype. And we clicked through the screens. I showed them exactly what it would do. And a lot of people were impressed, right? I think it shows a lot of things as a young entrepreneur. It shows that you have a lot of tenacity, that you're learning things that might be foreign to you, like how to wireframe, how to put prototypes together, that you have the ability to envision a software and lead a team to build it. But it also just shows that you have a product that people would want to use. And they immediately recognize that. So it really helped out to attract people to the company and join our board, join the company's ranks. And then also with investors, with RevRoad, my first presentation of RevRoad, like Bruce said, there's nothing more frustrating than seeing a bunch of PowerPoint slides and then not actually seeing the product that you want to build, and that you're pitching. So I met with RevRoad and we sat down, and our first meeting was informal, and I met with Darren and some team members, and we just went through exactly what I wanted to build. And when I go through wireframes, when I go through a prototype, I don't really focus on as much of what I laid out as much as the value that it would bring to the user, right? And so I'm like, when you're doing this type of anti-money laundering investigation, you know, you might have spent 3 or 4 hours on this process, but look how easy it is in this software and how much time you would save doing it and how much more enjoyable your job would be because it would be kind of fun to use this interface. And so I definitely focus on those values, or the reporting, like you pull a report and you show them and you say, look how nice this would be as an executive of the company. No longer do you have to dig through spreadsheets to get information that you need when you're busy. Now you have this nice, clean PDF report that's really beautiful, really easy to read. You only have to read 1 or 2 pages, and you get a snapshot of everything that's going on. And people see that value, and it creates a lot of excitement.
Awesome, Joseph. So let's go to the last slide. We just got a minute or two left. And I just brought up the slide with all the numbers. So this is what Joseph did using the prototype from a sales standpoint. And how long ago did you start that process?
It's developing the relationships has been a while. So it's been a year of us prototyping and planning and raising the funds and everything that we need to do. And a lot of it was just feedback, and you start building these relationships and people get invested, right? So people start saying we, us, because they want to be a part of it. It's exciting when they see these things developing. As soon as I got with RevRoad, I knew that I had certain relationships that I wanted to sell to. So we didn't approach them in a formal sales capacity until fairly recently, when RevRoad helped us come up with this really nice final prototype wireframes, and we started building it. And we're ready to start onboarding clients in September. Now we're going to Vegas next week, and we have meetings with Caesars and with MGM, with Wynn, like a lot of really top casinos. And so we have about 7 meetings scheduled, and these organizations are anywhere from $1 billion to $10 billion in revenue. We have one sales commitment, and that's worth about $300,000 a year in revenue to us, and that's with a casino property out in Indiana. And so it's going through board approval right now, but everything's looking really positive that approval will happen. And so that's basically what we've done, is just developing those relationships, getting people excited about the product, and then sales comes naturally because people want the product and they want to be first in and they want to use it. Awesome.
Cool. Well, great job, Joseph. Everybody give him a great round of applause. And, you know, Joseph, we're still a few months out from being able to release a product, but this is so cool that he's going to Vegas and meeting with all these big people. It's really cool. So great job, Joseph. We don't have a whole lot of time. One of the things I wanted to end with, and I want to just go through just real quickly some resources and tools. So if you've got your notepad out, I'll share with you some of the things that we use. So here at RevRoad, we use Sketch, and they do have a free license. It's only 30 days, but it's $100 a user. This has probably been the most popular design tool for the past, 5 to 8 years, and so a lot of designers will use this as they're doing prototypes. You've heard people talk about Adobe XD. One of the cool things about this, Adobe actually built this in response to Sketch. They were losing a lot of business for people moving over and using Sketch, so they built this. It's still free for individual users, and so that's a big plus. And it has at this point it has a lot of the same features as Sketch does, and it's pretty good. Next, Figma. Figma's kind of cool. As these guys were building TYRO with it, one of the fun things is that you can actually have more than one person on it at the same time. So one, you can just bring it up in a browser, and two, you can have like 2 people or 3 people editing at a time, which is pretty awesome. So think Google Docs, except being able to design, which is really cool. And they actually have a really good free tier as well. And so those are kind of the 3 main design tools that people use today. Other thing is we use something called Invision, and this isn't necessarily a prototyping tool, although they're starting to develop one of those. This is more so like we will build everything in Sketch and we'll upload it to Invision, And this helps us be able to share it with people, and it gives us the click-through ability. And, so if we're demoing an app, you can go pull it up with like an iPhone screen or whatever, and you can go, send people links to it. And so that's kind of the vehicle that we use to show the screens that we've built. So that's what Invision is. 3 resources. We use a site called flaticon.com. They've got free icons, they're SVGs and PNGs and all kinds of stuff. We'll use those for all kinds of stuff. For really high resolution, great photos, Unsplash is a great site for that. All of their stuff is free. Everybody's heard of Shutterstock. This is kind of like the free version of photos for Shutterstock. So Unsplash is great. And then for fonts, a decent rule of thumb for a lot of new companies, if you don't know what, like Google Fonts have kind of taken over the internet. And so if you're going to build a web product, you're probably going to end up building a Google font. And if you want some extra fonts to go download on your computer as you're building this stuff, that's a good resource as well. So these are resources. I think we probably have time for like one question. So who wants to ask the one question? And if anybody wants to ask me anything after the event, we can do that too. Okay, so let's go ahead and wait for the mic.
When you're doing product validation, I've been going to these meetings on Thursday, and Seth talks a lot about the mom test. So how do you prevent just having someone, in essence, say, like, oh, yeah, I think it's a great idea, and then, they actually don't really care? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. The whole moral of that story is it's super easy to get somebody to say that they like your product or that they will use it. And the real question is how can you determine whether they will or not? A decent substitute for that is to ask them for real money, but even that has its problems. Like the only thing that really works is you have a product and it's for sale, right? That's the only like ironclad solution. But I don't know. I think if you like what Joseph is doing, if you're using a prototype to try and sell the thing and actually get commitments for money, and that's about as close as you can get. So you have to bring money into the equation. Otherwise, you almost can't trust what people are going to say because I don't know. I've had the same experience too. So anyway, great question. Sure. Okay, so the question was, what counts as a commitment? It depends on how you want to count it, right? So if you can get them to sign something, then you have a better chance of them actually doing it. But that might be hard. So it depends on what your purpose is. Is your purpose of trying to count it so that you can raise money, right? Or is your purpose of trying to count it so that you can actually close that deal later? So it's really up to you on whatever you want to do. So sorry, that was not a great answer, but okay. Anyway, my time's up. Thanks, guys. You're awesome.
Thanks, Bruce, and our special guest. That was really awesome. I love to be able to see the resources that are available out there, and what a great opportunity to see some of those all put together, especially for those of you who are in this phase with your business. We are so excited today to feature our founders today that are visiting, Mckenzie and Colby Bauer of Thread Wallets. Before we dive into that, Bree Ray, our very own, is going to introduce them and share a little bit about them. So welcome, Bree.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Welcome back to Rev University. You know it's my favorite day of the month. And I'm pumped because my good friends are here from Thread Wallets. The Bauers founded Thread Wallets in 2015, and through this venture, they have found an irreplaceable sense of freedom and happiness as their vision has unfolded. Together, they raised some $60,000 from Kickstarter and launched Thread Wallets with a line of slim, stylish wallets that can be attached to a keychain, lanyard, or phone. Since then, they've expanded into other accessories like lip balm holders and crossbody bags. They sell their products in 600 stores like Zoomies and Shields and create corporate swag for Coca-Cola and Qualtrics. Revenue for 2021 is projected to be $18 million. Both Mckenzie and Colby believe in the power of surrounding yourself with smart and talented people who are dedicated to creating and building. So give a warm welcome to Kenzie and Colby. I almost said McColby. Mckenzie and Colby.
You can just call us McColby.
McColby.
I like that.
I think it'll stick.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks for being here. We had this conversation briefly earlier, but you did just go to Mexico.
We
Yeah.
did. We
And
went
y-
back to back. I think Kenzie was all cooped up in 2020, and we went from like California, Hawaii,
Oh,
Mexico,
Alaska was in
and
there.
Alaska was somewhere in there too.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't get enough beach. That's why I'm wearing my Aloha shirt.
Well, I also did not get enough beach through your stories and posts, so I also came ready for the beach.
I love it.
You guys are super creative, and I think Thread Wallets is a perfect product for the beach as well. But talk to me about Thread Wallets. What is it? Where did the idea come from? How did it start?
Yeah, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to play soccer at BYU and BYU Hawaii. Thanks. The BYU Hawaii coach came to tryouts, and he, at the end of the tryouts, offered me to come play at BYU Hawaii, and I was like, yeah. So I convinced my coach at BYU and 3 other players to come with me to Hawaii. And before I left, I'd bought a skateboard because I really wanted to get good at surfing while I was there. And so I learned to skate. And then when I got to Hawaii, it was like the first week there, I walk into the ocean with my wallet in my board shorts, and I lost all of my cards and cash. Renewed all the cards, everything came. Looked online for a new wallet. I just typed in men's wallets, and it was just the George Costanzas of the world. It was like, which for those of you who don't watch Seinfeld, it's a bulky brown or black leather wallet. That's pretty much all you saw online, and so it was just like a never-ending scroll. So I came up with I went to the grocery store. It's called Foodland, if anybody knows Hawaii, and walked past the vegetable aisle and saw those thick rubber bands on the broccoli stem. And I swiped that thing from the broccoli, and don't judge me, I didn't buy the broccoli. But I took the rubber band and I wrapped it around my cards and cash and called it good. I love that minimalism as my wallet. And that was the first time where I realized, like, I like this really slim, didn't need anything more than that. I only had a few cards and cash. Then simultaneously, I was taking a class at BYU Hawaii as an entrepreneurship class. And in the class, you have to start a Kickstarter campaign. And I came up with the idea for wallets. I thought it was a very underserved category, and I thought it needs some life. There was just this bulkiness in it and boringness. So I felt like we could use some slim and some style. And so I came up with a better rubber band, moved back to Utah, bought some fabric at Joann's fabric store, found out a way to print onto the elastic where you could print anything you wanted. You could put your face on it if you wanted it. And that was when I was now looking for a sewing machine to sew all these wallets, and I ran into Mckenzie and thought, oh, sweet.
Yogurtland. It was fate.
Yeah, Foodland and Yogurtland are in the story. And I convinced her that I liked her. No, just kidding. This is a fake part of the story. I always liked her. But to use her sewing machine, fell in love with her, got married. She helped me sew the first Thread wallet. Actually helped me design. So she's the one that, for the reason for the key ring on the wallet. So that's where it all started. It was a long-winded answer, but that's where we both came up with the first Thread wallet. Which, do you use the first Thread wallet, Ken?
It's over there on the ground.
If you don't know, it's basically
Glorified rubber band.
yeah. There you go.
Glorified rubber band. I love it. So talk to me, because Thread wallets are very colorful, creative, expressive, and that's why I love them personally. So talk to me about the creative process. How do you guys come up with designs? Where did the idea for the first design come from?
The first design ever placed on a Thread wallet was the poop emoji. And we had just started dating, and Colby came up to pick me up for a date, and I remember like so vividly him pulling the piece of elastic out of the glove box. I was like, look at this. And I was like, who is this guy that I just started dating? Yeah, it looks like a piece of crap. But anyway, the creative process has come a long way. Like if you go to our first Kickstarter campaign, it's
If you want a good laugh, go check that campaign.
Yeah, the designs are terrible and just like scraped from Pinterest, and which is totally illegal, and just it was terrible. But as we've developed progressed as ourselves, our designs have progressed, our style has progressed. You've gotten really good at design in Photoshop, and we've added creative designers to our team that manage the designs.
Remind me of your name. Moroni. Yeah, you were saying you were not creative, right? And nor was I. I would say I had zero skill with Photoshop or Illustrator when I first started, but I was forced to learn it. And so you can learn it. And that's where I think I've held on just actually until this last collection. I was probably doing 90% of the designs. And to answer your question, I would say Still Like an Artist. It's a book, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Even with your product ideas or any tech, it really just has to be, I would say, 10% better to actually catch, and so, or different, I would say. So even the wallet, as an example, it wasn't, I would say I stole 90% of that from another company that was doing a wallet that was successful. All we did was change the target demographic we were aiming at. We changed the aesthetic of it. We increased the functionality slightly, but still like an artist, I would say.
Well, and place yourselves, like when you're developing your creativity or trying to work on things, place yourself in situations that produce that creativity. Like for us, even those early days, and we still do it now, like we love just walking around malls. My phone is like an endless scroll of our pictures of our two daughters. And if you go on Colby's phone, it's an endless scroll of pictures of like designs and product that when we're out shopping, he just is like screenshotting like anything that he sees that he thinks is unique or cool. And that's really helped influence the style. And then I love what was said earlier about like keeping an eye on your competitors, but like staying in your own lane. And so we've determined like who our competitors are in terms of like creativity, not necessarily product. Like we look at companies like Stance Socks, Vans, Ruka, Globe. Chloe's wearing a Globe shirt. We look at all these cool brands and see what they've done and kind of try to like take elements of the aesthetic that we really like and throw it in to infuse it into our brand.
I love that. Talk to me about your partnership. You've been working together, living together.
Our marriage, yeah.
Essentially for the same amount of time.
Raise of hands, anyone working with either family or a spouse? There's quite a few. Probably you have a similar answer, I'd imagine. If you think you're going to enter a marriage or a business without any arguments, you're probably wrong. And that, I think, what's nice about Mckenzie and I is we are not afraid to be candid, but also that is somewhat of a flaw because we're almost too candid at times. And so early on, we had a hard time swallowing that candor. And what we've learned is to know how to give feedback in the right ways.
And how to receive.
And then also how to receive the feedback in the right ways. So I think if anything has progressed, it's been our ability to communicate, which I'm so grateful that happened early on in our marriage because I think for those spouses that don't actually work together, that may or may not ever come, or it might come later on in life, and it's harder to adapt. So I think that was really helpful in our business and our marriage.
I think adding people to our team, I think some founders think that the more people they add, the more complicated it gets. And in a lot of ways, that's true. But for us, it really helped us define our roles and responsibilities. When it was just Colby and I doing everything for the first year and a half, 2 years, it was hard to know like what lane we were in because it was just us. And so that produced a lot of conflict because we both had a lot of opinions about everything. But now that we have team members who've helped us take some of the load off, there are elements of the business that neither of us have to like think about anymore, which means that neither of us have to like argue about the decisions that are being made because we've delegated that decision to somebody else to make.
So talk to me about hiring because we've spoken before about this privately, and you mentioned that more often than not, you don't rely on the qualifications listed on a resume. So talk to me about your hiring process and what you look for instead.
Yeah, you probably have heard the quote, hire slow and fire quick. And if I could write a book, it would be hire quick and fire slow. There you go. No, I'm going to take it back. Hire smart and fire slow. The reason being is it's not necessarily the speed in which you hire to me, it's more about identifying character and potential. So again, to your point, there are times when a certain position needs skill sets. Like a designer needs to know Illustrator. But would I rather take a B designer with an A character than vice versa? Yeah, absolutely. So I think what I'm looking at when I hire is definitely character. I'm looking at potential and what they can grow into. I'm looking at ability to communicate. I'm looking at humility. So just character and core values to us, which, people who really like freedom and freedom to make decisions. Some people like the corporate structure of their boss telling them what to do, and that's what they do, and then they excel at it. Others don't like that. And so I think what we need at Thread as a young startup is we need people who are wanting the freedom, and then we can give it to them. And so there's core values that I'm looking for, and those are the questions I'm asking. I'm asking more like, tell me stories about your life. I'm asking about your siblings, or what would your parents say about you? If your siblings could say one word about who you are, what is that word, right? And so I'm getting, examples of who this person is, and then I call references. So it's less about a written resume. In fact, I would say half the time I don't even look at a resume, but I'm looking at character and potential.
Colby's mentioned a lot core values, and I think that establishing our core values as our company has really helped that process. So for those of you who don't know as I'm sure all of you don't know, our core values are creativity, humility, integrity, entrepreneurship, and freedom. So when we're hiring, those are the things that we're looking for. And I'd say that our current team are all of those things, and then the people that we have had to lay off are the people that aren't exhibiting those characteristics.
So why did you choose those specific 5 words to be your core values?
It's a great question.
Well, I could go down the list for each of them. The last one, freedom. So they spell out chief. That's not the reason that we chose those words. But they spell out chief. The last one, freedom. Someone recently asked if, they said, answer this question. In order for somebody to know you, what would they have to know? What would they have to know? And my answer was they would have to know that the core value that means the most to me is freedom. Because every decision I make, including starting Thread Wallets, was because of freedom and our lifestyle. I mean, I just told you we went on 3 vacations back to back to back. Like, obviously, we like our freedom, our lifestyle, and so that was an obvious one. The other ones are pretty. The way that we lead and expect others to lead in our company is by humility. I think that's the second biggest one in my mind is. In order to give someone freedom, you have to be humble. It's really hard sometimes to give up freedoms, especially when it's like your baby and you've been like before we had any team, it was 2.5 years just us. And so it's tricky, it's scary, but you have to have humility and let them fail, and you have to let them fall on their face sometimes. But it's also hard to listen to maybe a different viewpoint or and just be candid. And I'm speaking to candor again, but humility is a massive way that I would hope that if someone was to say Colby is X, I would say Colby is humble. Like that would be the biggest compliment in my book.
Yeah. And the other ones I think speak for themselves. Creativity, we pride ourselves in the creativity of our company and our employees, and we have monthly art days and projects that we do as a team to help foster that creativity. And then integrity, obviously we want people who are going to be honest and straightforward and get to the point. And then entrepreneurship, we want people who are problem solvers and who are going to dive in and they don't need their hand held.
Which I'll just following up the very last one because we missed another one was entrepreneurship.
I said that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me speak to that because I just thought I learned about the 49ers. I didn't really know what that meant, but 49ers were the first people on the scene during the gold rush, and part of our story was when I graduated, I had an opportunity to be a financial advisor with my dad, which in essence he had built this firm for me. For my whole life, we'd talked about I'll take this over, and it'd basically be like, this is the gold mine, here's the shovel. All you have to do is dig, here's the gold mine. For whatever reason, that just didn't sit well with me. I just didn't like the idea of knowing where the gold mine was. I liked the search for the gold, and I think the 49ers would agree that it was probably less about the gold and more just about the adventure coming west and that's a fun adventure. Grateful that Mckenzie was so willing to go on the adventure with me. But those are the types of people that we need at Thread. So entrepreneurship to us means somebody who's willing to leave maybe gold or a corporate job or security and take a risk and enjoy the adventure while we're on it.
I love that. You guys started out with a Kickstarter fund, and those kind of fundraising campaigns have their own challenges, but did you ever do any capital raises in addition to that?
No, we have, I guess just outside of crowdfunding, we've never taken any money from external partners. So we've funded Thread based on cash flow from day one.
What have been the wins and the losses of not having outside investors?
I think first and foremost is it's made us so scrappy. Like, we have been profitable from day one, and we've had to really focus on that profitability, which in years like COVID was really, really important. And you never know what life's going to throw at you, what business is going to throw at you. And so knowing that we're profitable and that we're being smart about our growth is, like, I think the biggest thing.
Yeah, we'll probably speak more to the pros than cons. The pros for me would be it forces you to learn new skills. Again, back to designing or whatever it is, we've had to wear all the hats, and so because we couldn't just hire it and pay a high salary for someone who's really good, we had to learn some of those things. That's been really beneficial. The biggest one, though, I think is it forces you to be optimized, like Mckenzie was saying, is you have to think about this company has to be profitable or else it dies. Whereas, and you see in LinkedIn constantly, we raised our first seed round or our second, whatever it is, like, and it's tons and tons of money. And I get the reason for posts. Not all of them are just like, pounding the chest. But I think there is a stigma around raising money that is a sense of accomplishment, which it's cool because there's validation from the eyes of an investor. However, what you don't realize is sometimes you're putting on golden handcuffs. And so being able to be in charge of our destiny and in control of making decisions for ourselves and not having someone look over our shoulder or feel the pressure for growth, that I would trade a million times over the stomach aches I had for 2 years trying to learn how to design and make wallets and all the stresses of that.
So what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs who are scrappy and bootstrapping?
What advice would I give them if they are
if they are bootstrapping, they're being scrappy? What advice do you have for them?
It depends, because in different industries tech is harder to bootstrap. It's not impossible. A good friend, Garrett G, they did Scan, and they had a working prototype and functioning product well before they raised too much money. With consumer products, it's really easy unless you're developing something really high tech and costly. But what's nice about consumer products is you hand somebody a product and they hand you money right back, and so you can be profitable pretty quickly. So it's a different answer for different entrepreneurs. But if you can, I would say don't take money. I would say learn, get scrappy, partner. Don't be afraid to give equity to the people who are in the weeds with you, who are in it for the long term. That's what we've done. So we have 5 partners internally at Thread that have equity, and that was probably the best decision we ever made.
Yeah. One of my favorite analogies Colby gives about starting a business is that you don't always have to hit a home run. I think that you see a lot of these big tech entrepreneurs or just entrepreneurs in general, and it's like they did it. They've arrived. They made, they raised tons of money, or they had this huge exit. But for every successful entrepreneur, there's so many that fail, and the idea of not having to hit a home run and something that we've focused on is that slow, responsible growth. So, okay, we're going to get to first, and then we're going to get to second, and then we're going to get to third, and then we're going to run home. And that is a point on the board. And I think that it can be overwhelming when you're starting a business, when you're just going for that home run every single time, because that's few and far between. But if you just focus on those slow steps and moving responsibly, just get on first base, the growth is going to follow.
What other crucial decisions did you make early on that impacted the direction and the current success of Thread?
That's a phenomenal question.
Partnering with my beautiful wife.
Good answer.
Wow. He's a good one.
There's so many crucial ones. If I could go back in time and make more crucial decisions, I would say outsource anything that's not your core competency. Meaning, if you don't care to be the best at it, then give it to somebody who does, if you can afford it. So we held on to production. I was pressing wallets on a dirt basement, and she was sewing wallets for 2 years. If I could go back in time, I would have outsourced that to a factory in a split second.
Same with fulfillment.
And fulfillment, we held on. We were picking, packing, and shipping all of our goods for 2 years as well. So the crucial decision we made in that was to let go of those things. And it was hard. Sometimes it's hard because you want to control certain things, but giving that to a fulfillment company who they care to be the best at fulfilling, we don't really care to, we just want to give that to them, then we would do that. And the same goes for bookkeeping and even maybe video, photo, whatever it is. Like, there's so many things you can outsource. And so I would just be looking at things that you can do that and leverage like RevRoad. They provide great services, and they'll connect you with the right people and work with people who know what they're doing. I would make those decisions again a lot quicker.
So we first got to know each other back in the day through influencer marketing, and we did a collaboration. Talk to me about your influencer marketing campaigns that you've run. In my personal opinion, Thread Wallets is one of the first companies in Utah to really grasp onto influencer marketing and take it and run with it and make it work. So talk to me about where you started with your influencer outreach and how your campaigns and your marketing through influencers has evolved.
Yeah, that's also a great question. So we were so lucky. So part of our story, we met in 2014 in January, and that's when we first started sewing things and figuring things out, and then sold at some farmers markets. And then it was 2015 when we officially started as a company and registered our LLC and stuff. So legally we started in 2015, but there was a lot going on in 2014 that we don't often talk about. But that's when we were starting on Instagram and starting posting and asking people to follow us. And at that point, Instagram was only 4 years old. So we were really, really lucky to be in that phase because there wasn't a lot of competition and Instagram wasn't as saturated. So we really took advantage of influencer marketing in the early days. When we launched our first Kickstarter in March of 2015, or I guess that would be our second Kickstarter, I remember sitting on the floor of my parents' living room because we were living with them at the time, and we sat there for the entire day messaging and reaching out to everybody on Instagram and Facebook that we knew and asking them to share, to like, to follow, whatever it was. And I think that example really defines our influencer marketing strategy at the beginning. I really believe wholeheartedly that in some sense, everyone is an influencer. Everyone has this sphere of influence and people that trust them and believe them. And so for those first years, anyone that reached out for free product, anyone that asked to do a photo shoot, anyone that wanted our product or showed interest, we sent them product. And I think that really started a viral trend, especially here in Utah. It really took off. There's a lot of college students here. We would go to BYU campus and hand out wallets. So that was great. Obviously, over the years, it's evolved as we've grown and we've introduced more structure, and we can't respond to every single person that wants free product. But we really try in our influencer marketing to bring value to the person we're working with, and we want it to be a relationship more than just a one-off. We really try to we kind of have tiers where we have influencers where we just reach out to them. Hey, we'd love to send you product, no strings attached. If you enjoy it, we'll just be in touch. So just very no strings attached. And then if they do share about it and like it a lot of times we ask them to become a core influencer where we put them on contract. So every month they're required to do one post. But it all starts out with that first reach out, no strings attached, just a relationship, following each other, liking, engaging with each other. If we're in the area with them, taking them out to dinner or whatever it is. And then we have our core influencers, and then we have our thread heads who are like athletes, sponsored artists, etc. And they're people who've kind of funneled up through that system and now post for us regularly, and we have really good, strong relationships with them.
When we started, like Mackenzie's saying, it was just brand new. So you got influencers who didn't really know what to charge. So you'd have one influencer say that's $10,000 a post, and then the other ones would say like $200 a post. It was just like across the board.
All over the place.
You didn't know. So and we didn't have the money to be paying, but we did have the product. And you're giving us too much credit, Bree, by saying we were the trailblazers in this, because
way too much
we
credit.
took a page out of Freshly Pick's playbook, and they did the palms up approach, which is like offer something as opposed to like asking to take. And so what we did, and Mackenzie was just killed it with this, was she would send, like if she would reach out and say, hey, we want to offer you free product, love what you're doing, send us your shipping address, and she'd send them product. And instead of giving them just one wallet, she would, make it a great experience, and she'd send them a bunch of them, and it was just a fun experience where they felt like, I want to post about this now. They just got something, and we still do that. So we send out boxes with like a full experience and all the product, and it's a handwritten note and all that stuff. So it's you got to get creative when you're young without money. But regardless of if you're in tech or if you're a consumer product, but your product is like a mattress and you're not going to ship out a mattress, you might get, say that mattress company, you might get some fun products that are relating to your brand. Say like pillowcases, or like purple mattress, you might just get like all the purple candy, or whatever it is. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but like get creative with like what you can ship people, and you know what I'm saying? So
how you can engage with them and give them, bring value to their lives.
So throughout your entire Threads journey up to this point, what has been one of the greatest lessons you've learned?
Oh gosh. I would say the greatest lesson and the beauty of starting your own business is it opens the doors for miracles in your life. So we get to see, because we don't know what we're doing, so we are constantly praying and asking for help and talking with people. You see so many miracles, and God's so willing to give them. And so you get to meet so many people that way, and it's just, it's so fun. You get to learn a lot. You're constantly seeing the stars align. I mean, it's countless number of times we've seen God's hand in this. So he's our third business partner, we always say.
Yeah.
But I would say, if anything, that's like the highest point. There's so many little lessons, but I would say that's like number one.
We're so in sync. It's crazy.
Okay.
I literally was going to say we're very religious, and the initial thought that came to my mind is that God is in the details. There's been countless experiences where it's just like that would not. I mean, 2020 is a prime example. We went into the year with a goal of 13 million. It would be our first 8-figure year. And when COVID hit, we were like, crap, like what's going to happen? And we revised all our goals, made some changes, and we ended up coming out just like $500,000 shy of that 13 million goal despite everything. And there's just, whether it's a large example like that or small examples of meeting a person that gives us a piece of advice about something, there's just, business is too risky to not include God, in my opinion.
You mentioned that we are coming out of 2020, which we are all very aware of.
Yes.
So what word of advice would you give to entrepreneurs who have also felt the stress and the struggle of the past year and who are trying to look forward with positive outlooks?
Yeah. I would say our goal word for 2021 is optimization. So I think along with that is efficiencies. So as you're building your business into the future, find ways to keep things lean and focus on profitability, focus on sustainable and smart growth. And it's just kind of that home run analogy again, just like keep things simple, just get on first base.
I will take more of an emotional piece of advice here is take care of yourself. And I remember early on, I was taking an entrepreneurship class at BYU, and the teacher said it's impossible to find balance when you're starting a business, which you can, when starting a business, I realize it's not impossible, but it's just a lot more difficult. but you can find balance. I think there's like you kind of feel like you've earned it when you say, oh, I woke up at 5 and I stayed up till 1, which we did, and it was, I would never want to go back to that. It's not something I'm proud of, you know, and what I am proud of is the fact that I can go spend 3 weeks in Mexico and Hawaii with my family and have some work-life balance. That's what I'm proud of. And so if anything, when starting a company, or if you're well on your way with an amazing company, I'd say just be kind to your mind, be kind to yourself, and take time away from work and spend it with family.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Oh, no, go. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to open it up for audience questions at this point because we have a great audience with us here today and hands already in the air. So as a reminder, if you have a question, just raise your hand. We'll walk a microphone to you. Do not touch it. We'll hold it in front of you. Thank you very much.
Colby Mckenzie, great job. Loved it. This question comes from online. A good friend of RevRoad by the name of Cornell. He asked, other than influencer marketing, how did you go about finding your wide range of sales channels, and what marketing channels have been the most effective?
I'll speak to sales channels, and you say marketing channels. Sales channels, we were strictly e-commerce for 3 years. Well, I guess I take that back. As far as our attention was just e-commerce. I liked the idea of staying simple and direct. That's how we were able to stay profitable. So sales channels we've introduced along the way. We're now with wholesale, as mentioned, we're in actually like 800 plus accounts. We have our own retail, so we have currently 2 kiosk locations and planning to scale that. And then we also do business to business stuff. So as mentioned in the intro, like working with Nike. Well, actually, I've never worked with Nike. I don't know why they came to mind.
That's a goal.
Yeah.
Like dream. Throw it out there.
Google,
put it into fruition.
Big Fortune 500 companies all the way down to like high schools, which is really fun. And that is, I would say, a custom order was actually the reason that we were able to fund the brand. We were able, with an order like that, we were able to get into our first office, which was awesome, from Vivint and a company called Chubby's. So sales channels, I would just take slow. You know, when you're first building a company, I would say you're building a bike as your vehicle, and then slowly you'll upgrade to like a motorcycle, and then a car, and then a semi, and then who knows what's next. So just be very simple with your sales channels.
Yeah. And then the second part of that question was marketing? Like what?
What marketing channels have been
Marketing, paid advertising, Facebook, Google. We do ads on Snapchat. Any type of paid advertising has been our most effective.
Yeah, I think, I don't know the audience here who's in like consumer products, but when I asked Skull Candy how much they were spending on paid ads, they spent $50,000 in Q1, which is like nothing.
This was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago. So they're probably different now. But which, to give you an idea, we're spending probably like $500,000 a month. So as a company who's direct native, we're spending 10 times the amount a month, or actually way more than that. For a company who's been around, I would say take advantage of that. If you're in consumer or even tech, I imagine paid advertising is massive. That's the reason we've been able to scale and stay profitable.
It's getting harder and more competitive, so you have to have a lot of like ad sets to test and optimize, and have like the knowledge and bandwidth behind you to do that. I know a lot of companies starting out that paid advertising is really, really intimidating because they don't have a content team, they don't have copywriters, they don't have photographers, and so invest in like quality content and just start building it out. Even now we have ad sets that win, and we have ad sets that just don't perform well. So you just gotta test.
Other ones, in a nutshell, email marketing is a no-brainer, and SMS marketing.
Yeah, we introduced SMS last year in like March of 2020, and like over 2 million was attributed to SMS. So SMS is a really powerful marketing channel right now.
Hi, I'm curious about your actual growth curve. So you started in 2015, it's 2021 now. You guys did 13 million last year. What was that growth curve like from a revenue standpoint? You guys worked just the two of you for 2 years. So, you know, what's the growth curve for you guys been, if you don't mind sharing?
It went from 150,000 the first year. I'm using round numbers here. 150 to 250. Then we figured out ads, and then it went to 1.1, 4.5, 8, and then 12 and a half. So it took us a while, I think, speaking back to this like outsourcing and ads, when we figured those things out and we knew what our core competency was and how to nail our customer and what products they wanted, that's when we really started to see that like hockey stick. Took a few years. Yep.
Yeah, it was 2017.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, 2017 was the year that we did over $1 million. And that was the same year that we outsourced production, outsourced fulfillment, and really started honing in on ads.
So in the very beginning stages of your business, I'm right here, by the way, throughout those first couple of years, were there ever some really good opportunities that seemed like really good opportunities, but you had to say no to, and why did you say no to them?
Absolutely. This is talk about an argument Mckenzie and I had constantly about whether or not we could dump more resources into our B2B, because the product itself can work in so many different industries. Like Marriott could use them, or cruise lines, or high schools, or whatever it is. Like the wallet and a lanyard can just work across the board. And so I was in favor of, let's just like open the doors to all of these different companies and we can scale this thing really fast. And she was in favor of, let's build our brand. That's what we enjoy the most. That's what we find so much fulfillment out of. And obviously she won the argument. And we have kind of a hybrid now, so we do both, but most of our attention, actually all of our attention goes to brand. The other B2B stuff is more reactive. There's hardly any outreach. We just hired someone this year, but other than that, that was a hard one to say no to, because you're saying no to a lot of money and what you kind of need when you're first starting, and looking at brand. And it's a long-term play, but it's more fun, I'd say. And
yeah, so we like the branding, the creative, the fun side.
Yeah.
Mckenzie mentioned this. As far as sourcing goes, when entrepreneurs ready to scale, what factors do you two or do you guys consider on finding who or where will you manufacture your products?
Yeah. So early on, we didn't know how to do that. Luckily, Alibaba was a very easy software that we could site we could find factories. So the factories, actually I'm about to lie, because the factories we found in year 2 were the same factories we were using up until the war on tariffs, so we switched to Vietnam. So we were in China and now we're in Vietnam. But to answer your question, we sourced those factories just from Skype. So we never flew out to China. Most factories in China have somebody who speaks English really well, or it's kind of a middleman to factories. And everything can be done digitally, as we know now. So sending videos, sending pictures, sending swatches. So we just figured out how to do that and source it ourselves. Now we use a third-party company, sourcing company. So if we want to, we're doing new products, they'll find the factories for us.
And when you're sourcing, I'll give you a few pieces of advice. I remember it was the summer of 2015, so it was right after we finished wrapping up our Kickstarter, and Colby had actually spent time on Alibaba and ordered some products, and they were nearly perfect. Like, I look back at it and I'm like, why didn't I was such a control freak, and I was like, the elastic's just a little too thick and it's a little too shiny, and so we threw in the towel because we were like, it wasn't right. Whereas if we would have just pushed a little bit harder and like done a few more revisions, I think we would have gotten it.
Well, we would have, because fast forward 2 years, it is the same factory.
It's the same factory.
That was Susie.
So interesting.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I would say is, if you decide to use a third-party supply chain company, make sure that you have really good agreements in place and stuff, because we used a company out of Utah, which is actually kind of unfortunate, to help us for a little bit, because we were like, I don't know what to do. And the cost of our product was a lot greater than it should have been, because we were paying so many middlemen.
It was 3 times the amount, yeah.
3 times the amount. And then about 6 months after we parted ways with them, because we were like, we're just going to do this on our own, they knocked off our product. And we were fortunate enough to have IP on our product, so we were able to tell them to stop. But it was kind of unfortunate because they knew about the IP and everything, but we just didn't have agreements in place. So if you are doing that, make sure that you are protecting your product and your ideas.
As a final question, oh, we have one more.
Oh, Chris, we knew this would happen.
Well, it's going to be a good one. No, it's a two-part question. It's mostly for Colby, because I know you're a soccer player and soccer fan. Champions League's happening right now. I don't know if you're pulling for Man City or Chelsea, but when Man City wins, can we expect a line of Man City-designed thread products? Thank you.
You know what's funny is, as big of a soccer player as Colby was, he does not watch soccer at all.
I skateboard now. Sorry, Chris.
Chris's Emmy right there is our head of customer service engagement, so that's her dad. We love them.
As a final question, this is a question we always ask. What is something fun your success has allowed you to do?
That is a great question, because I've been praying for how to give back. I feel like we've been blessed a lot, so just like, how do we give back? And last year was kind of rough, as we know. I struggle with some anxiety. I posted on LinkedIn if you haven't seen it, but my mom struggles with alcoholism and has for 30 plus years. And it got so bad last year that it kind of sent me into some panic attacks, and coming to realize that I want to give back in mental health and addiction recovery through recreation. So what it has enabled me to do is first discover where I can give back, but also having the vehicle for Thread to give back. So as you know, maybe some of you know, our slogan is carry on. So we help you carry your stuff, but we also help you carry on emotionally. So we get to tell stories of people who've come out of things like that, or how they carry on, how do they find mental fitness and stability in their lives. So, and then eventually we would love to have some sort of foundation and give back in that way. And so it definitely has helped a lot in that regard.
Yeah. If you want to see a really cool story on our Instagram, one of our thread heads last November was at a friend's house, and I think it was a pit bull bit off her upper lip and like all of her nose. And she shared a video with our audience about that whole process and how skateboarding has helped her like cope and heal with this huge life change. So yeah, giving us a platform to connect with really cool people and share their stories has been awesome. And then experiences like this, like I think that my favorite thing and what I'm most grateful for at Thread is just the people we've been able to connect with because of it. We have an amazing team, and we would not be where we are without them. It's all thanks to them. And then just people that we get to go to lunch with, and people that reach out. And the other day, the head of digital marketing from the Walt Disney Company called me to ask me some questions about something that she's building, and I was just like, this would never happen if I didn't have Thread. And so that is what I'm most grateful for.
I think that's really cool. Well, we have a gift for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's give one more round of applause for Colby and Mckenzie.
Thank you, guys.
Or McColby.
All right. Thank you both again so much, Mckenzie and Colby, and thanks so much to Bree. That was an excellent, excellent conversation. I had a lot of takeaways from that for my personal life and even just looking at the businesses that I work with. So it's so great and inspirational to hear your love story, your business story, and how you've been able to make all of that happen together. So thanks so much. Let's give them another big round of applause. So in addition to that, thanks to Joseph, Augustine, Moroni, Bree, and all of the crew that's behind the scenes helping out today, and each of you for taking time to attend RevU today. Next RevU will be on June 3rd. So let's watch a quick teaser video to learn a little bit about our guest.
Hey guys, Jeff Griffin here. The best unknown speaker you've never heard of yet. When I come out on stage, I like to address the elephant in the room about how good looking I am. Completely joking about that one as well. But I am in a wheelchair. You may not be able to see it or not, but I come out and address the elephant in the room and let people know that I may be physically paralyzed, but I've learned that most of us, if not all of us, are paralyzed from the demons of doubt, fear, and complacency. And what we're going to do here at RevRoad is we're going to talk about the 3 parts to building a successful life and business. Come join me and RevRoad.
Okay, awesome. I hope everyone will take time next month to come out and see Jeff and hear what he has to share. It sounds like it's going to be really excellent. There is boxed lunch in the back, and don't forget to share your favorite takeaway from today on LinkedIn with the hashtag RevU. You can also share on other social media platforms. We love the shout out to RevRoad. So thanks again, and have a wonderful Thursday. We'll see you next month.